Whether we like it or not, how we allocate our money each month can literally make or break our financial future. You could be making six figures. But if you're not strategically placing your dollars in the right buckets, you might as well be making half of that today. I'm going to walk you through the exact framework for where to put your money each month to maximize your growth and build real wealth. And these aren't just theoretical concepts. These are the same principles that I've used personally and that I've seen work. For countless people who have gone from paycheck to building substantial net worth. So let's dive in. So the first allocation bucket is your emergency fund. And I know this sounds boring, but hear me out, because most people get this completely wrong. I've talked to so many people who think they have an emergency fund. But what they really have is just whatever's left over in their checking account at the end of the month. That's not an emergency fund. That's just poor planning. A real emergency fund should cover 3 to 6 months of your essential expenses. And I'm talking about essential expenses, not your entire lifestyle. So if you spend $4,000 a month, but $2,000 of that is on dining out and entertainment and subscriptions you don't actually need, then your emergency fund only needs to cover the $2,000 in essentials. The reason this is your first allocation priority is simple. Without an emergency fund, you're one car breakdown or one medical bill away from going into debt. And debt is the enemy of wealth building. I don't care how good the stock market is doing if you're paying 18% interest on a credit card. Because you had to put an emergency expense on there, you're losing money, period. So here's what I want you to do. Calculate your essential monthly expenses, multiply that by 3 if you have stable income or 6 if your income is variable, and make that your emergency fund target. Until you hit that target, I would say at least 50% of any extra money you have after covering your bills needs to go straight into a high-yield savings account for this fund. And yes, it needs to be a high-yield savings account, not a regular one. Because if your money is just sitting there, it should at least be earning 4 or 5% interest, not 0.01% like most traditional banks offer. Now, once you have that emergency fund fully funded, we move to allocation bucket number 2, which is high-interest debt payoff. And I'm specifically talking about high-interest debt here, so credit cards, personal loans, payday loans, anything above 7 or 8% interest rate. Here's the thing about high-interest debt. It's like running on a treadmill. While someone's pushing you backwards, you might feel like you're making progress. But you're actually losing ground every single month. That balance is accumulating interest. And that interest is compounding against you. I had a friend who had $15,000 in credit card debt at 19% interest. And she was making minimum payments thinking she was doing fine. I showed her the math. And at her current payment rate, she would take 14 years to pay it off. And she would pay over $18,000 just in interest. That's more than the original debt. So she would essentially be paying double for everything she bought years ago that she probably doesn't even remember purchasing anymore. The strategy here is what's called the avalanche method. You list out all your high-interest debts, and you pay the minimum on everything, except the one with the highest interest rate. On that one, you throw every extra dollar you possibly can. Until it's gone, then you move to the next highest rate. And so on. I would allocate at minimum 30 to 40% of your discretionary income toward crushing high-interest debt. Because every dollar you put toward that debt is giving you a guaranteed return equal to the interest rate. So if you're paying off a credit card at 18% interest, that's like getting an 18% return on your money. And show me an investment that guarantees 18% returns. You can't find one, because it doesn't exist. Allocation bucket number 3 is retirement accounts. And this is where things get interesting, because this is where you start actually building wealth, not just protecting yourself from emergencies or digging out of holes, but actually moving forward. The beautiful thing about retirement accounts is the tax advantages you get with them. So for most people, you have access to either a 401k through your employer or an IRA that you can open yourself. And the basic rule I follow is this: if your employer offers any kind of match on your 401k, you need to contribute at least enough to get the full match. Because that's literally free money if your employer matches 50% of your contributions up to 6% of your salary. And you're not contributing that 6%, you're leaving free money on the table. That's like getting a raise and saying, no thanks, I don't want it. After you've maxed out your employer match, the next question is whether to use a traditional retirement account or a Roth. And this depends on your current tax situation versus your expected future tax situation if you're early in your career. And in a lower tax bracket, now Roth accounts are usually better because you pay taxes on the money now at a low rate. And then it grows tax-free forever if you're in your peak earning years. And in a high tax bracket, traditional accounts might make more sense, because you get the tax deduction. Now, I personally aim to allocate 15 to 20% of my gross income toward retirement accounts. And I know that sounds like a lot, But here's the secret most people don't realize: if you do this consistently from your 20s or 30s, by the time you're in your 50s or 60s, you're going to have more money than you know what to do with because of compound interest. Someone who invests $500 a month starting at age 25 will have over $1.2 million by age 65. Assuming an 8% average return, that same person who waits until age 35 to start will only have about $560,000. They waited 10 years, and it cost them over $600,000. That's the power of starting early with retirement allocations. Now let's talk about allocation bucket number 4, which is taxable investment accounts. And this is what you focus on after you've handled your emergency fund, your high-interest debt, and you're contributing solidly to retirement accounts. Taxable investment accounts don't have the same tax advantages as retirement accounts, but they have something even better: flexibility. You can access this money whenever you want without penalties. You can use it to buy a house, start a business, or just have more financial freedom before you turn 59 and a half. The key with taxable investment accounts is to invest in things that are tax efficient, so index funds that don't generate a lot of taxable events are great. Individual stocks that you hold long-term are good because you only pay capital gains tax when you sell. And if you hold for over a year, you get the lower long-term capital gains rate. What you want to avoid in taxable accounts are things like actively managed mutual funds that are constantly buying and selling and generating tax bills for you, or bonds that generate regular interest income that gets taxed at your ordinary income rate. I typically allocate anywhere from 10 to 30% of my monthly surplus toward taxable investments, depending on what other financial goals I have going on. And the beautiful thing about building up a taxable investment account is that it gives you options. Maybe you want to retire early, and you need money to bridge the gap until you can access your retirement accounts, or maybe you want to start a business, and you need capital, or maybe you just want to know that you have a substantial amount of money working for you that you could access in a real emergency. Beyond your emergency fund allocation bucket number 5 is skills and education. And this is the one that most personal finance people completely ignore. But I think it's one of the most important. You see, all the other buckets I've talked about are about managing the money you currently make. But this bucket is about increasing the money you make in the first place. And here's something I learned from talking to wealthy people: the best investment you can make is yourself. Your ability to earn money is your greatest asset. If you make $60,000 a year and you have a 40-year career, that's $2.4 million that's going to flow through your hands. And if you can increase your earning ability by just 20% through education or skills, that's an extra $480,000 over your career. Show me an investment that's going to return you $480,000 on a few $1,000 investment in a course or certification. You can't, because it doesn't exist. So I personally allocate 5 to 10% of my income toward things that will make me more valuable in the marketplace. That could be online courses, books, conferences, coaching, certifications, or even just software and tools that make me more productive and efficient. Now, I'm not saying go into debt for education. That's a whole different conversation. But I am saying that if you have extra money after covering your basics, allocating some of it toward making yourself more valuable is one of the highest return investments you can possibly make. Allocation bucket number 6 is what I call lifestyle goals. And this is important because if all you're doing is saving and investing and never enjoying your life, you're going to burn out and you're going to quit this whole financial independence thing. The key is to be intentional about it. So instead of just randomly spending money on whatever catch your eye in the moment, you actually plan for the things that matter to you. Maybe you really value travel, so you allocate $200 a month to a travel fund. Maybe you're really into fitness, so you allocate money toward a gym membership. And healthy food, maybe you're saving up for a down payment on a house, so you're putting money aside specifically for that. The amount you allocate here is going to depend on where you are in your financial journey. If you're still building your emergency fund or paying off debt, maybe you only allocate 5 or 10% toward lifestyle goals. But if you're in a good place financially, maybe you allocate 20 or 30%. The point is that it's intentional. You're making conscious choices about what you value, and you're funding those things deliberately, not just spending whatever's left over. Now let's talk about allocation bucket number 7, which is giving and impact. And I know some people might think this is crazy to talk about giving when we're trying to build wealth, but hear me out, because this is actually really important for your long-term financial success. Study after study has shown that people who give regularly are actually happier and more satisfied with their finances than people who don't, even when controlling for income level. And there's something psychological that happens when you give money away. It shifts your mindset from scarcity to abundance. Instead of feeling like you never have enough, you start to realize that you actually have more than enough to share. And that mindset shift is powerful because it affects how you make decisions about money, how you negotiate your salary, how you invest all of it. I'm not saying you need to give away half your income or anything crazy like that. But even allocating 1 to 5% of your income toward causes you care about or people who need help can have a massive impact on your overall relationship with money and honestly on your happiness, which at the end of the day is kind of the whole point of building wealth anyway. So let me put this all together for you in a practical framework that you can actually use starting today. First, you calculate your total monthly income after taxes. Then you allocate in this order. Emergency fund gets funded first with at least 50% of surplus until you have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved. Then high-interest debt gets 30 to 40% of surplus until it's completely gone. Then retirement accounts get 15 to 20% of gross income consistently every single month. Then taxable investments get 10 to 30% of remaining surplus. Then skills and education get 5 to 10%. Then lifestyle goals get whatever you're comfortable with based on your situation. And finally, giving gets 1 to 5%. And here's the key: this isn't about perfection, it's about direction. You might not be able to hit all these percentages right away. And that's okay. The important thing is that you're being intentional about where every dollar goes. You're not just letting money flow through your hands without a plan. You're actively directing it toward the things that matter most. And as your income grows over time, you can increase the absolute dollars going to each bucket while keeping the percentages roughly the same. I challenge you to sit down this week and actually map out your current allocations. Where is your money actually going right now? And then compare that to this framework and see where you need to make adjustments. Because I guarantee you that if you follow this allocation strategy consistently for 5 or 10 years, your financial life is going to look completely different. You're going to have security, you're going to have growing wealth, and you're going to have the freedom to make choices based on what you want, not just what you can afford. Let me know in the comments which allocation bucket you're going to focus on first. I hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.